Welcome to thatchannel.com. My name is Hildegard Gmeiner, and this is Liquid Lunch coming from to you from Toronto here on the 5th of February 2016. It's a sunny day here in Toronto, and we have an amazing show ahead. I would like to introduce you to our first guest. His name is Tom James. Tom is the author of this wonderful book called God Does Not Play Dice, which is available on Amazon. Tom is also a physicist. He is very knowledgeable in coming up with a new theory that goes beyond Newton and Einstein's theory, if I say this correctly. Why don't I let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you? Maybe we'll even start in high school. How did you come about thinking about the complexities of the universe?
Well,
welcome, first of all. It's so nice of you to be here and take the time out of your busy schedule to talk to me.
So a lot of researchers in physics and that, they do a lot of tests and things like that. They research other people's theories and that. It didn't start that way for me. In fact, as you mentioned about high school, where I was able to develop something was because I studied the brain. And, I didn't know I was going to study the brain, but in high school what happened was I thought I was smart. So I went into high school, I met a guy in a chess club, and, I thought I was good and everything, and this guy didn't just beat me, he embarrassed me. He totally, every time. Later on, I found out he was one of the chess masters of the world, but at that time, I couldn't figure out, how did he beat me? So I started thinking about thinking, how does the brain work, and I came up with a simple formula for coming up with new inventions. And it's very simple. This gives anyone access to creating brand new inventions. In fact, an infinite capacity for it. You just combine one invention with another. Stereo TV, stereo TV. Simple. Now, at first it might not seem very useful, except what you do is when you start talking about the new invention, because it's not a stereo, it's not a TV. You start talking about the new invention. Because if you have bizarre combinations, it actually stimulates the imagination, stimulates intelligence. And this was one of the things that allowed me to come up with a unifying theory by seeing the relationships between things. Because when you start getting an intelligence for the relationships between things, in physics, that's critical to getting a unifying theory, to knowing this thing in physics, quantum mechanics, this thing in relativity, and being able to relate them.
Okay, we made a big jump here. We just were in high school. You were beat by this incredible chess player.
Yes.
And I understand you dove deeply into neuroscience, artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
However, first of all, why? What was the reason behind this other guy beating you? Did you find out what was so good about him? What was so unique about this young man?
First off, he was the number 2 chess player in Canada. He had a photographic memory. Okay, so he could remember all these things, and he was number 33 in the world. But he had a photographic memory, meaning he had all these plays in his head already. So I had really had no hope going in.
So then explain a little bit more about the neurological ability this young man seemed to have versus a normal human being.
If that actually can have you do well
what
at
is
school.
Normal?
If you can remember things, then, you remember things, it gives you a better advantage, especially in school.
Yeah.
Right? Or playing chess. If you have just remember, it'll have you make better moves. Like you can have you get higher grades just if you have memory. That's it. But you see, beyond that, there's something I learned later, which is what Da Vinci was known for, as his secret, if you like, about excellence. Da Vinci knew this. Typically it's attributed to something else, but he knew that all knowledge is related to all other knowledge to be made useful. So that there is something the same or similar, which is between any two things. And this is the inventor's tool. Like, for instance, say I want to make a new razor blade, right? I want to do that. So it's like I want to get knowledge and like that. You want to investigate things that cut.
Correct.
Or anything the same. Similarity is the key. That's the similarity, like in the universe with physics, similarity, finding what's the same between any two of these major pieces that allows you to relate them. In fact, in a unifying theory, all the pieces have to relate to everything else to come up with that.
Let me go back to you saying
Sure.
all the pieces.
Yeah.
When I hear unifying theory of the universe,
Yes.
which you initially told me you were going to talk about,
Yes.
I am not even thinking of pieces. I'm thinking of energy. Can you clarify how do you see it? Like the relationship between matter and
okay.
energy, let's say.
Okay.
Is there a solid or is there not a solid?
Okay, so that's getting more into the physics, but when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the physics alone, the knowledge around physics alone,
Okay.
which is, this is the way I expressed it, that there are all these different pieces. And see, Einstein, he knew about relativity, and he was very accurate on measurements on the very large scale. But when it came to the quantum mechanics, the uncertainty principle, all sorts of things that they're not predictable, because there's the uncertainty principle basically says things are not predictable. You can predict within a certain probability, but it's not absolute, and this is what Einstein had difficulty with. What I was able to do is find a link between the two.
So you can actually make improbability more probable?
Well, I call it the principle of relative uncertainty. It has to do with mass.
Okay.
See, the uncertainty principle has to do with the predictability of small things, right? And even observation can change the predictability of small things. But here's the thing. It has to do with mass. You see, if you have, and it has to do with Newton, because the more mass you have, the more predictable it is. So very large things that Einstein dealt with are very predictable. But if it has less mass, force can affect them. The lighter something is, the less mass it has, force can affect it.
So if I have a pen fall to the ground,
Yeah.
or I have a ton of lead rolled off a building,
Yeah.
what's the difference?
So I'll express it a different way. If you have a ping pong ball,
Yeah.
okay, it's like weighs like an ounce. Now, if I throw it across a busy street and the wind is blowing, it'll get affected. It'll either hit the ball or the building on the other side, even if I throw it at 100 miles an hour. If it hits a car, it's going to bounce off, or hits the building, or the wind could cause it to veer. But if I take that same ping ball, same size, and that's now 100 tons, and I throw it at 100 miles an hour, not even the building will stop it. Nothing will affect it. It'll still be going 100 miles an hour out the other side.
Okay.
But the ball won't, and it depends on mass. Right? And that's the principle of relative uncertainty. The predictability of outcomes, like where it will land, is relative to mass. Right? And that's a big, important thing. It really is. Because it makes quantum mechanics and the uncertainty predictable, a predictable phenomenon.
So please clarify for us who are not physicists
Okay.
and who haven't studied all of that.
Yeah.
What is the status quo in physics? What does quantum mechanics say? What does quantum physics say? And where are you different?
Okay. So
Where is your unified theory different?
Okay. So here's the thing. There are all sorts of theories in physics, lots, right? But when you go back to the beginning of the universe, there either matter existed or it didn't. Now, if you talk about the beginning, people don't think matter existed. But if I talk about the beginning of this universe, there's theories called the Big Crunch, Big Bang, where all matter comes together, and it goes and it explodes, and it comes back together in a cycle. That's called Big Crunch, Big Bang. So either matter existed or it didn't in the beginning of our universe. It's like one or the other. Okay, not something else. It's like one or the other. And a lot of theories are based on that there was no matter. The Big Bang theory, no matter. A lot of other theories, no matter. The universe started off as a singularity, expanded, right? And it was very hot, and it started very small. The problem is something is around Occam's razor. You see, I don't know if anyone's heard or you have heard of that, but Occam's razor is kind of like it's raining outside, there's thunder, it's dark, you hear all sorts of wind, and there's a flash at your window. I mean, is it a real estate agent taking a picture of your house because they thought it was nice to put in their newsletter, even though you didn't ask one? Or is it lightning? Occam's razor says the theory with the least amount of assumptions is likely to be true, right? Like, it's lightning. It isn't someone taking a picture of your house. But you see, in the beginning of the universe, if you go look at matter versus no matter, that's what you're looking at, right? So you have a singularity. You have an insane amount of heat. And you have the universe decided to expand. There's no cause-effect. You have to make an assumption about that. You have to make another assumption and another assumption about that. Also, the universe is expanding faster than the matter we can see. That's why they theorized about dark matter, because there was no matter in the beginning. They theorized, there's dark matter driving it. That's why the universe is accelerating faster, because gravity's pulling it. And there's also sideways motion, as Hawking said in his book, The Theory of Everything, right? There's the universe isn't expanding uniformly. There's a sideways motion. That's another anomaly. And because you have so many anomalies, there's all these assumptions if there was nothing there. However, the moment you put matter in the beginning, the very moment you consider that, all these anomalies start to disappear. For instance, the more matter you have, the more gravity you have. And at a certain point, the gravity is so strong that general relativity says, and we know this, it collapses to a singularity, which was at the beginning. So it explains that. Now, if you take an enormous amount of matter and put it down into a very small space, you get a very big explosion, which means everything begins to expand, and you get a tremendous amount of heat, so it explains everything at the beginning. So I started actually coming up with that. I started looking at the whole universe on a macroscopic scale, and it pointed to things, right, that there's an enormous amount of evidence that points to that matter was in the beginning. An enormous amount. I'm actually building on relativity and Newtonian mechanics, because you see, if matter is in the beginning, Newtonian mechanics becomes very important. Force equals mass times acceleration. His laws become very important in the design of the universe.
So as you're speaking, what comes to me is that there are certain principles that you were talking about now. There is matter, or plasma, or human body. And out of human body, procreation is possible. Two energies coming together. New cell starts to grow. So,
there's duality in everything.
Is matter the creator, the God? Or the God source? Out of which that energy maybe then, or black matter, so to speak, out of which everything took its origin then? I mean, it's a big topic. How do you define God?
I know.
Because your book's called God is Not Playing Dice.
Yeah, that's Einstein's.
Big title.
No, Einstein's belief was the universe had an order and organization to it, that it was understandable and there was a design. He believed that, but he had difficulty with quantum mechanics. My theory resolves that by expanding. I actually expanded on Einstein's theory and expanded on Newtonian mechanics and integrated them. This is how mine is different, because I actually even have blueprints for gravity. I'll get to God in a bit.
Okay, so just summarize that in a simple sentence for me. I'm lagging behind you here a little bit, I think.
Okay.
So are you saying matter was there first, whether it's dark matter or whatever, out of which then this concept of explosion, things evolve, it collapses, it's this ebb and flow of change between matter and energy and vice versa?
Okay, so in my book, so here's the thing. Physicists think that there's two physicists, people that believe in God, that are basically the religious universities, and then there's other universities, and Mr. Hawking, who say, believe that God doesn't exist type of thing. And they each have physics arguments related to that, okay? Those that believe have something called fine-tuning and anthropic theory. Basically, there's a whole bunch of constants in the universe. How fast the universe is expanding, how big atoms are, all the cosmological constant, all these things. If you change them even a little bit, no life, no universe. So those that believe in God say, because there's so many constants, and if you change any one, no universe, this must be a design, therefore there must be a designer. But the physicists who don't believe in God, they come and say, no, the universe was very small in the beginning, so the uncertainty principle applies. That means it was a random event. And if it was a random event, and this is where M theory comes in, with the theory of multiple universes, is that universes are being created all the time, and since it's a random event, we just won the galactic lottery that life was here, and that's it.
So we should be really happy to be here.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing. In my book, I actually point out that it wasn't a random event. It cannot be.
So you are a supporter of the intelligent design?
Yes, because here's the thing. Well, again, it's like if matter is there in the beginning, right, and the amount of matter that had to be there, outcomes due to motion are not just merely predictable, 100% predictable. And because they're 100% predictable, the uncertainty principle does not apply, which means it's evidence for the existence of God. Now, then in my book, I've further speculated, how did even God come to exist? Right? So here's the thing. If the universe, say we're living now and the universe collapsed, okay, to a singularity, we wouldn't survive. But if we were around long enough time, we might evolve enough that we could. Now, we might survive like we do here. But if there were beings alive before the Big Bang, and they had evolved enough, they might be able to survive it. But the thing is, the only way they could survive is to be in every single thing. So there would be sentience.
You're giving me the clue
everything.
To how does the rubber hit the road here? Because what I hear you say is that it takes a certain amount of awareness or knowledge of what it means to be a human being and how to use this instrument in a way that I could actually not go through life thinking stuff just happens to me by chance, or some people are more lucky than me, but you could actually create certain probabilities, and you can control the probabilities of a certain outcome.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well,
because earlier I heard you speak to a colleague of mine here, Lalo, and we talked about past traumas.
Yeah.
And, human beings have their challenges, okay? I can only speak about myself. Certainly have a lot of challenges. And how did you take this very complex theory and simmer it down to how does it affect us as human beings, and how can we be more in control, quote unquote, of our lives?
Well,
what is the implications? Like, what do you want? You had a reason to write this book, maybe to give a message to physicists, but there may be something else.
No, but so there's some very practical things about what's in there. My first insight that led me to everything was Einstein's formula, E equals mc squared. That gave us the atomic bomb, but also gave us nuclear energy. At the moment the atomic bomb exploded, it became real. It's not just a theory anymore. Small amount of mass can be converted into a large amount of energy. My first insight is that if you go the other way, convert pure energy into matter. It relates to the beginning of the universe, as they said. But you see, when you have matter, the moment matter exists, it has gravity. You cannot have matter without, they're inseparable. So I could put gravity into the equation. Why this is profound is not only does it relate to the beginnings and origins of the universe, but inventions. So this represents reality. You can actually have inventions that now have gravity involved. You could have nuclear-powered spaceships that create gravity wells and pull it along. You can have anti-gravity, anti-pollution devices. It makes all sorts of inventions. Clean energy devices, right? This is, one of the other things, right?
And I understand your company, Earth Care Inventions, is into these type of
Well, yeah, I want to start.
Yes.
I'm actually, it's a startup. I'm seeking funding from the government right now. They've contacted me. They want to talk to me about it. It's to make all sorts of inventions related to that that will help humanity.
You mentioned you have a technique, like a meditation, where people can overcome old patterns, old programs, that you based on what you've learned in developing your material?
Yes. It actually is a side thing that was happening at the same time, a challenge in my life. And I participated with Landmark Worldwide, who does a lot of coaching, and I made a discovery. And I was able to confirm it with Edgar Cayce, and then I was able to help people and myself in my own situation. And if you want, I can do the meditation for you.
Okay. We have about 4 minutes.
Okay, so
does that suffice?
So if you just shut your eyes and relax, and if anyone is listening to this out there, you should be not in a car, in a nice, quiet place. So this is for people who've had childhood trauma or violence or anything. This can change your relationship to it completely. Just relax. Quiet, and just remember that event, whatever it was that got you so upset when you were young. Just remember that. Since you were young, you're not to blame. You're not to blame. You are not to blame. You were only a young child when this happened. In fact, if any other child would have been in that situation, they would have been angry, frustrated, blaming themselves, crying. You're not to blame. And if you imagine a child in front of you, just for a moment, who looks and sounds and behaves just like you, just imagine if that happened to that child, they would be crying, upset, angry, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. They're not to blame. And there would only be one response from you if you saw a child and you knew that that happened to them, that child in front of you. You would give them your love. You would embrace them in love. You would love that child with all your heart and tell them everything was going to be okay. And as you embrace them, embrace yourself. You weren't to blame, and you're a being of love. Accept yourself for who you are. Love yourself. And gradually, when you're ready, open your eyes.
So I saw myself with curly little hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Light blonde hair. So who is this? Is this my true self? Is this my inner child?
Probably that, your inner child.
So
it's who you were when something like that happened. And the idea, although, we've only done this in a couple of minutes, in a longer, deeper meditation with sensory information, it can help.
Okay,
and at least the understanding can help that, when you're a child, you're not to blame. This came out of a great understanding of who we are as human beings.
So, and that relates to your other work. You also, I understand, study neuro-linguistic programming.
Yes, relates to that, yes.
It's all part and parcel of you researching how the human being fits into the bigger cosmic picture, if I could frame it that way.
Yeah, it's like finding out how this brain works, how human beings behave. Yeah. Freud said that, there are a whole bunch of drives that we don't know about, and I've confirmed that one of the discoveries I made about human beings is that we're all in fear, or rebellion, as Cayce says, or love. Those are two subconscious drives. You're not aware of them, but they do impact and drive our life. But the thing is, love rules.
So is that the universal connection, the vibration of love?
Yes.
Through which you access the unified field?
I didn't expect to get to that, but that definitely became, when that became a reality, it became very strong in my life.
Right. Well, we will have to have you here again and delve deeper into this, and by then, hopefully, I also had an opportunity to read your wonderful book.
Okay.
I'm here with Tom James, the author of God Does Not Play Dice. And how can people get in touch with you? I know you have a blog.
Yeah, there's a WordPress blogs. Okay. I'm also on Facebook as, author Tom James, or, through Twitter, they can tweet me.
Okay.
As author Tom James.
And are you working with people one-on-one? Do you welcome people to contact you, to work with them possibly?
Yeah, I've done some coaching for people and organizations before. Mm-hmm. Maybe I can do that next time. I can do some really amazing coaching that's really entertaining using movie video clips.
Wonderful. Yeah, certainly look into that. Okay, well, thank you, Tom, so much for coming and sharing this interesting topic with us.
Thank you.
And look forward to having you on the show again later and dive into the subject matter a bit deeper.
Yes.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Hildegard.
It's nice to have you. Just stay with us, and we will be back in a very short while. Thank you.